Koga is an unlucky lonely loser who is broke and has nowhere to call home. This all changes when he moves in with a hot ghost and uses his psychic powers to clap her. Koga is a traveling psychic, and he usually helps people by punching ghosts to defeat them. Upon hearing that a certain Uragian is haunted, he visits the place to see if there are any ghosts lying around. But when he finds nothing, he goes straight to the open-air bath, only to be surprised by a beautiful ghost taking a bath. The ghost is surprised to see that he can actually see her, which embarrasses both of them, so she responds by knocking him out. When he wakes up, Koga realizes he's on Chidos's lap, the Uragian keeper. According to her, he was knocked out cold after the ghost girl rained down ballistic wooden tubs at him. Hearing the commotion, Nanko, a resident MILF and drunkard, introduces herself as one of his neighbors. Then a kunai grazes his face, and an incredibly hostile ninja appears before him, introducing herself as a Meno. Lastly, this catgirl Yea appears in front of him after snuggling little Koga like a teddy bear. It turns out, the Uragian isn't really haunted, only populated with weirdos equipped with milk trucks.
What do you mean by that?
After their brief introduction, the girls leave him alone and Koga goes straight for his room. He thinks he's lucky to get the room, but there's an oddly stacked pillow sticking out for the Rizzler on the wall.
Wait a minute!
You don't find that suspicious?
When he pulls it out, he realizes it's the same ghost who knocked him unconscious. His pull-out game is so strong that the ghost just landed her ass first on his face.
Not gonna lie, that shit may be hard.
The girl then introduces herself as Yuna, a ghost bound to the Uragian. At first, she's anxious about how he looks at her, but after confirming he can see her completely, she's relieved that he's not scared because usually, people mistake her for a scary ghost. However, even Koga is anxious because he wants to exorcise the girl, but he can only do that by punching her, which he can't do. After sorting things out, Yuna prepares their beds because she can only sleep inside this specific room, which Koga admits is a terrific idea. But later that night, both of them can't sleep, so Yuna asks him about his story. Koga tells her about the time he got possessed by Logan Paul, and now he's broke and the IRS is after him. He became a psychic to get back on that grind, but he's not there yet. After hearing his story, Yuna tells him she's glad he can see her, because this is the first time a human isn't afraid of her. He then asks her about her lingering regret, which is the reason why she's still a bound ghost. Apparently, bound ghosts turn evil if they don't ascend to heaven soon, but a rat interrupts their conversation, causing Yuna to activate her powers. When she deactivates it, Koga lands on top of her, which magically reveals her bazongas, causing her to launch into the Mississippi River. The next day, Koga explores the town and thinks about what Yuna had told him. He tells himself that he needs to send Yuna to heaven or else she'll go straight to hell. While thinking of a solution on how to do that, a mysterious man suddenly appears in their room and aggressively tries to send Yuna to heaven. He notices this presence and immediately heads for their room, witnessing the harsh electric punishment she is being subjected to. At first, he thinks it's for the best, but Yuna tells the guy she still has a lot of things she wants to do in the world, particularly Koga. So our hero springs into action, breaks the exorcism, and punches the guy so hard he dies. He realizes Yuma's happiness is more important, so he tells her that she'll make her dreams come true before sending her to meet her maker. When the exorcist guy suddenly moves, Koga immediately defends Yuna by grabbing her fun bags, which sends him flying once again, landing him straight in the Appalachian Mountains of Uragian, getting jumped by all the girls. The next day, he wakes up next to Yuna as they slowly ascend to meet God, so he quickly wakes her up, which causes them to free fall to hell. She later apologizes to him on the way to get their breakfast. When they arrive at the dining area, both Ameno and Nanko are already eating their fill. But Ameno is extremely hostile towards him, especially after Koga got a free live stream of their milk bags yesterday.
Yeah, boy.
He asks them if they're also ghosts, so Nanko shows him if they're real or not.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
With Ameno giving him a British handshake. She questions whether Yuna is okay being with Koga, especially since he's a man, and even if she's literally a ghost, she's still a woman. But Yuna admits she's okay with it, despite getting touched multiple times yesterday. So Ameno attacks him, but he tells her that he's not there to do anything bad to Yuna. In fact, he's the one who's going to ascend her to heaven, so she doesn't end up being a demon. Yea appears out of the futon again, but now she's got cattails.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
And Yuna asks her to hide it.
No! No! No!
Chitos also appears and is about to reintroduce themselves, but that guy from yesterday comes back with an army of Johnny Sins. He tells them that they need to ascend Yuna real quick, and once they're done, they can do whatever they want with the rest of the girls, sending the monks wildin'. In response, Ameno uses explosive vape kinase, destroying a bunch of them, while Nako follows up with her demonic Wii Sports powers, decimating another group of monks. Yaya also follows up by summoning her giant car, which in turn eliminates the rest of the monks as the car god plays with them. Finally, Chitos sends the killing blow by curing everyone of erectile dysfunction and being poor. With the monks finally cured of being broke, all of them leave the inn happy and full of hope. The next day, Koga wakes up after getting jump-scared by Yuna's massive good yacht. But she immediately wakes up and throws him into the river again. On the way to get breakfast, he sees a wandering cat in the hallway, so he grabs it and starts petting it. But it turns out it's actually Yaya in her cat form, and she's hella mad at him for grabbing her without consent. So Ameno delivers divine punishment, and Chitos tells him that he's getting evicted for his actions. Unless he wins a challenge, she's arranging to settle the score, and whoever wins gets to order the loser whatever they desire. With both parties agreeing to participate, Chitos tells them they're gonna be fighting for their rights through ping pong, even though he hates it and Yuna never played the game before. The game starts with Yaya opening up with a claw serve, but Koga delivers a counter strike, winning a match point. Apparently he was once possessed by a ping pong coach, so he's basically a god at ping pong. Upon learning this, Ameno uses Shadow Clone Jutsu and throws like 50 balls at him, but Yuna parries all of them balls back to her. Later in the match, she's having trouble using her abilities, because they only activate when she gets embarrassed, and she's becoming so used to it that it stops working. So to win the fight, she tells Koba to look at her freshly baked thighs, voluntarily embarrassing herself to clutch the fight. In the end, both Yuna and Koga win the match and he gets to stay longer. When he tries to help the girls, however, he trips and becomes a rock climber climbing the wrong mountain. One day, Yuna wakes up with Koga nowhere to be seen, so she starts looking around the inn to find him. She thought he left her because she's annoying, but Chitos tells her he left because of the start of his high school ceremony. After getting harassed by spirits, Koga thinks his high school life will be different, but Yuna visits him and causes chaos for him. Yoda, one of his new classmates, tells her about Shizaki being the campus sweetheart, and apparently, they're lucky they're in the same class as her, but Yuna just deletes all that luck when she lifts the girl's skirt.
Not gonna lie, that may be hard.
And she immediately blames him. Turns out, she's curious about their uniform and needs to inspect them so she can copy their design. But she gets embarrassed again, causing everyone to float. When their teacher arrives, he asks everyone to introduce themselves, and when Koga's name is called, he tells the class that he's a psychic medium and advertises himself as a ghost fighter. However, his classmates laugh at him because they don't believe in ghosts, even more so in ghost fighters. After their class, Chisaki asks him to come with her as her house is basically haunted by ghosts, and she can't really ask for help from anyone, except for him. Hearing this, he happily accepts the quest and asks her to lead him to her house. Once they arrive, he and Yuna scan the area for any potential spirit traces, but Chisaki has some doubts about him, especially after that uplifting incident earlier. Koga asks her if the stuffed toys are giving her trouble, so when she confirms, he starts beating them up left and right. He tells her it's the only way to exorcise them, at least that's what he does. But to his testing, the stuffed toys are practically safe and are not haunted at all. He theorizes that someone must be controlling the toys, so he asks Yuna to check the toys for anything spiritual. When she checks it, the toy looks at her, activating her powers and causing Koba to land on top of Chisaki.
Yeah, baby!
So Chisaki tells him to go away, but he's not going anywhere until the mystery is solved. Later that night, Chisaki's toys starts doing some Freddy Fazbear shenanigans, ripping her clothes apart. But one punch psychic kicks their spiritual rice cakes, tracing the origin of their controller. After tracing the spirit line, the trio finds a mysterious figure who immediately throws a leaf at them, which turns into a giant demon monster. Koga rushes at the creature and gives him a massive headache. Then it explodes back into a leaf. Then he threatens to do the same to the mystery man, who turns into a rocket raccoon girl. She then starts crying and apologizes for what happened as she explains her situation. Her name is Koyuzu, and according to her, once they turn 10, they will leave their village and blend with human society through their transformation. Unfortunately, she's bad at it, so the only form she can manage is that of a kid. All her life, she's always been alone, and the only place she can live is in an abandoned temple. But that's why she's terrorizing Chizaki, because if anything, Chizaki has one thing she lacks: a pair of giant melons.
What did he say?
Apparently, to learn how to transform into an adult, she needs to inspect Chizaki's torpedoes, and her only wish is to see it one last time, but Koga's gonna beat her up. Chizaki understands her situation and shows her RTX 4060 Ti,
What do you mean by that?
finally resolving her problem. After that encounter, Koga and Unit take Koyuzu to Yurajien so she can finally have a place to call her home. The next day, on the way to school, they run into Chizaki, who thanks them for solving her problem, giving Koga homemade cookies as a reward. 2 days later, he and Yuna run into Ameno, who turns out to be a regular high school student, just like him. Yuna tells him that she is also a campus sweetheart like Chizaki, but everyone's afraid of her because she can beat them up. Ameno then walks up to them and asks Koga to meet her on the rooftop to discuss something important. Apparently, she wants to hire him to become her assistant for a special mission of exorcising demons. By day, she's a regular student, but by night, she works with Chuma ninjas in secretly eliminating demons, like this hair-eating monster, for example. Later that night, they meet up, and she tells Koga that there's a clothes-eating demon lurking at the park, who preys on humans, particularly couples. This is why they're using regular clothes to attract this demon, and Ameno is determined to bring this demon down, because she swore an oath as a ninja protector, even if it means getting stripped naked.
What did he say?
Once they arrive, the demon uses its domain expansion, but Ameno thinks it's not gonna go after her, because she likes Tekken too much. So Koga tells her to link up arms and pretend to be a couple, since that's how the demon works. Immediately after holding his arms, a demonic fog surrounds them and starts ripping her clothes apart. So Koga charges his hand and uses Kamehameha, revealing the true form of the demon. It quickly attacks Ameno, but she counterattacks with her Hell's Kitchen technique, which destroys the remaining of her clothes. Our boy saves her from falling.
Stop it.
But she rewards him by stabbing his head with a kunai. A couple of days later, Koga asks everyone about Yaya and the cat god. Ameno explains that she's possessed by one of the cat gods, giving her incredible powers. The cat god loves Yaya and stays in the inn because Chitos can cook good food. But she tells them she'll have to leave tomorrow to do something important, so they'll have to cook on their own. The next day, disaster happens because Yaya cooked their breakfast, and it's a goddamn cat food. During their dinner, Nanko brings nothing but an unhealthy amount of beer and chips. The next day, Yuna prepares their breakfast, and it tastes like a Detroit sewer. So Ameno volunteers to cook and makes the most atrocious meals known to man, poisoning everyone. But Koga has had enough because all the women in the house can't cook edible food, so he shows them how it's done. Apparently, he was once possessed by the spirit of a legendary griller, so he mastered the art of grilling food. He pretty much cooked in this one, because when Yaya tries his food, she becomes interested in him and starts following him around the next day, even in the bathroom, offering to wash his back. But Koga recoils and starts showering her instead, causing her to get mad at him. Yuna tells him Yaya isn't good at handling hot water, so he asks her why she's following him. Yuna brings up the fact that he cooked so hard the other day, so he figures out that Yaya wants more grilled fish. So later that night, he cooks more grilled fish for her, but she doesn't eat all of it because she gives it to the cat god who possessed her, who now befriends him. 2 weeks after the incident, Chisaki starts to become friends with Koga and becomes interested in Yuna. As a human, she can't really see her, but since Yuna can touch things, they start communicating through Koga's notebook. So during class, the two start talking about a lot of things, and she learns how Yuna and Koga share the same room. She thinks they're dating and doing kind of pro wrestling every night.
What do you mean by that?
But Yuna tells her that's not the case. Later that day, she and Yuna talked more about personal stuff, with Chizaki offering Yuna to inspect her clothes so she could imitate their structure. So Yuna starts taking her clothes off, and as thanks, she lets Chizaki touch her as well. But whatever they're doing gets interrupted when Koga opens the door and witnesses some spaghetti action going on.
Yeah, boy.
After their class, Yuna shows him her new uniform, thanks to Chizaki's help. Curious about her looks, Chisaki asks her if they can take a picture together. But she's against it because whenever her picture gets taken, she just appears as a scary ghost, not her real figure. Chisaki tells her it's no big deal, so they take a photo together. But she's visibly terrified, so she photoshops the entire thing to make Yuna cuter and less scary. Once they arrive home, Koga meets Nanko's editor-in-chief, who reminds Nanko about their upcoming release. It turns out Nanko isn't just a resident drunkard MILF, but she's also a very talented mangaka. Unfortunately, they're on a tight deadline, and there are a lot of things they need to finish because everything's due tomorrow. So she asks for Koga's help to finish the manga panels, and they start drawing and writing the manuscripts. Luckily, Koga was once possessed by the author of Blue Box, so he's good at drawing.
Bruh.
But they had a snag because Nanka wrote a complicated plot, and now she's agonizing on what to do with it. Also, she's stuck in their current panel because the main character was attacked by an aggressive boy, and she can't draw them properly. So she asks for Koga's help to visualize the entire scene. All he needs to do is basically grab her body and be rougher with her. A couple of shots later, they hit the bed and things start getting steamy. However, Nanka's into it and is basically directing her editor, so the shots are perfectly aligned. After a few hours, Koga starts wondering why Nanka is a manga artist, so she tells him about her past life. Apparently, she's an ogre descendant who hunted yokai in the past, but one time, she got injured so bad, she stopped working as a hunter. So, she tried a lot of things, from being a maid to being a calligraphist. Eventually, she ended up settling into being a manga artist, because she believes that this is her calling. A couple of hours and coffee cups later, their work is done, and the editor gets the flash drive on time, ditching them to submit it to the publisher. Koga's about to go to bed when Nanka stops him and tells him they need to celebrate, gulping a large beer before drowning him in the biggest jugs on earth. After the weekend, Koga and Yuna go back to school, while the rest of the Uragian residents go on about their day. With the people gone, Chito dresses up for school, but on the way out, she sees the two idiots coming back to the inn. So she manipulates their luck and summons a boar, sending Koga to meet Donkey Kong. However, her powers have an immediately opposite reaction as she accidentally steps on a dog's tail, enguring it. The dog chases her all the way to her middle school, where she meets her friends. Apparently, she's keeping this middle schooler thing a secret from everyone because she has to uphold the innkeeper image, otherwise, no one will respect her. As the god of luck, she's basically immortal, but she's forever gonna look like a 13-year-old. So she tries to enjoy being one as much as possible, while also keeping it a secret. During lunchtime, however, a couple of future FBI's most wanted start hitting on them, grabbing one of Chitos's friends. So she tells them to leave them be, but one of the punks strikes her food, causing it to scatter midair. So she manipulates her food's luck to bring it back to place, but the dumbasses still grab them. Having enough of their BS, she summons immense misfortune upon them, in the form of Koga, who beats their asses so bad they started running. But after seeing him, Chitos also hides her identity because Koga doesn't know she's pretending to be a middle schooler. After their school, both she and Koga return to their usual duties, and Chitos resumes being the innkeeper. The next day, Koga and Yuna go on a date because he wants to know what Yuna's lingering regrets are, so he can finally ascend her to heaven. But she has no idea what she regrets not doing, so Chitos gives them a ticket to Unable, which is like a dating spot for a lot of couples in their city. Yuna tells him as a girl, she also wants to get on a date, so he honors her wishes and decides to take the date seriously. However, their first hurdle is getting accepted because right off the bat, the clerk declines requests to access one of their facilities. And because people can't see Yuna, he looks like a massive schizo talking to nothing. When they arrive inside, they're immediately met with another challenge, which is renting underwear. Seeing couples talk about what to wear, Yuna asks him what he wants her to wear, but he doesn't have anything he likes. He just randomly grabs a very skimpy bikini. Even though she's embarrassed, Yuna takes the bikini and transforms into the hottest ghost in town, but she settles with a normal pink one, which is more comfy for her. After getting their drip, they try and think what to do next, but each time they visit a stall, the clerks tell them it's only for a couple, and they can see that Koga's a total loser. Yuna apologizes for making him look stupid and invites him to a giant water slide. Once she gets on the slide, however, her top flies off and Koga takes her down with him, creating a massive explosion. After a few hours, Koga wakes up, and she tells him that he's been out for several hours after almost drowning. Missing out on most of Yuno's attraction, Yuna just asks him to take a bath with her in the hot spring area, and she thanks him for accompanying her, despite making him look completely delusional. But she feels like he's trying so hard to please her, and she doesn't want that, so she tells him that he just needs to be himself the next time they come back to Yuno. A couple of days after their date, Yuna wakes up so close to Koga, revealing all her bountiful harvest to him before throwing him into the river. Later that day, she feels so down because it keeps happening and she feels like Koga will no longer allow her to be in his room if it keeps up. So the people in the house tell her what to do to mend their relationship. Koyuzu mentions how they're so close, that it almost feels like they're a married couple already. But the two deny this because they insist they're just roommates.
So you're a liar.
After their breakfast, both Yuna and Koyuzu take a walk outside to go shopping for food. On the way to Target, the wandering dragon god Genshiro spots them and thinks Yuna is the perfect woman for him. He immediately falls in love with her and confronts her, telling her that he's going to take her in, but Yuna sends him flying down the river with her ability. When he comes back the second time, however, he declares he's going to marry her and repopulate Japan with their dragon spirit babies.
What did he say?
Yuna tells him it's impossible because she's a bound ghost to Yuraji Inn, but Genshiro tells her it's alright because it's proof of her loyalty and power, which makes her the most suitable wife for him. Yuna tries to shake him off of her, but her poltergeist ability stops working for him. Koyuzu tries to protest and tells him that Yuna is already seeing Koga, which sparks his interest in him, even telling Genshiro that they've already progressed the plot faster than him. However, the dragon god has Yuna on both his hands, so he's basically taking this dog of a woman. Koyuzu tries to interfere, but Genshiro's retainer deflects her attack, almost killing her. Fortunately, Yuna tells her to stop, begging them that she'll do anything so long as they leave Koyuzu alone. With their plans complete, Genshiro and his retainer, along with Yuna, travel back to their domain. Koyuzu warns them that Koga will rescue Yuna no matter what, but Genshiro welcomes this challenge, with his retainer stating that he's the black dragon god and the entire hood will jump Koga at any given chance. On the way home, Amino and Koga spot a crying Koyuzu, all alone on the road. Koga asks her what happened, and she tells them about Yuna, the forced marriage, and who they are up against. Once he knows everything, Koga tells her it's not her fault and sets out to find the dragon god's domain. Ameno warns him that the Chuma army classifies Genshiro as a dragon god. Therefore, as a ninja, she can't interfere. So instead, she'll go there as Yuna's friend and rescue her from the filthy womanizer. Koyuzu joins the group, and so they immediately head for the dragon god's palace entrance. Meanwhile, Genshiro plays Sims 4 with Yuna, dressing her up in various clothes that fit his idea of a perfect wife. The retainer gives her wife materials to study, but Yuna tells them she doesn't want to marry this idiot.
Emotional damage!
However, the retainer tells her that she will not be leaving the castle for eternity as Genshiro's wife. Yuna tells them she doesn't love him, and she's not worried about her relationship with Koga. But it's just that she feels bad for doing things to him unintentionally. So the retainer tells her that it's better for her to get married instead of being stuck with Koga. After a few hours, the trio arrives at the palace temple thanks to Ameno's abilities. Upon arriving at the bottom of the cave, a towering castle greets them, so Ameno transforms into her latex battle suit to prepare for an assault. While scouting around, however, a random guard notices their presence, so she knocks it down, going for the stealth route using her grapple hook to get across. Koga, on the other hand, goes loud and proud, calling for Yuna's name at the entrance, but he basically alerted the fish horde, and now he's captured. When he wakes up, Genshiro introduces himself and asks for his last words. So Koga asks him why he's trying so hard to marry Yuna. It turns out the dragon race just goes around shining everyone like Zeus, and doing that to Yuna is just like breathing for them. But Genshiro asks him how far they'd go, especially since after Koyuzu snitched on Yuna, they've been pretty nasty in their room. Fortunately, Koga catches on to this, and since Genshiro is a massive idiot, he uses this to pretend that he and Yuna have been smashing day and night. Hearing this, Genshiro starts tweaking badly, curious about Koga's cultured tastes. Meanwhile, Ameno sneaks into Yuna's room hoping to rescue her. But the retainer backstabs her, dealing massive crit damage. Yuna tells Koyuzu to run and get some help while Ameno deals with the retainer. However, she doesn't last a hot minute, because she's immediately captured after their fight. Upon seeing Ameno's thick body, Genshiro approves of her status as a mistress and tells the retainer they'll be taking both of them beautiful girls. Ameno tells Koga that he needs to flee, but after seeing Yuna crying at this forced marriage, he tells Genshiro that they've taken baths together, enduring the dragon god. He immediately kicks Koga out of his castle, but Koga stands up and tells him he's a goner, before sending him straight to meet God, all thanks to yet another spirit of Goku possessing him. But this power comes with a weakness because he can't hit hose, so the retainer uses this exploit to fight him. Koga responds with a Hadouken, but it rips the retainer's clothing, revealing that she's actually a woman.
Yeah, boy.
So he realizes he's cooked. However, Nanka and the rest of the gang arrive, thanks to Koyuzu's quick response. The retainer stops and tells them they're all going to be part of Genshiro's harem, even Koga. But Koga puts all his points into charisma and convinces the retainer to stand down. She agrees to this, so when Genshiro wakes up, she tells him that both Yuna and Ameno are going to heaven because their ghosts and his love for them is so powerful. They no longer have any regrets. Thanks to Koyuzu's magic, they manage to convince Genshiro, who's a complete moron, that they're all going home. With all things resolved, the gang goes back to the inn safe and sound. The next day, however, Koga wakes up next to a very good morning as he realizes Oboro the retainer is next to him. Yuna wakes up and realizes what's happening, so she asks her what's going on. Oboro tells them that she's gonna need Koga to give her strong babies.
What did he say?
All for the sake of the Dragon God clan. A few weeks have passed and Shizaki visits the Iraji Inn to check up on Yuna. Upon entering the inn, however, she's greeted by Koga wrestling with Obara. Of course, she freaks out and lashes out at Koga, who she thought was a good guy. Koyuzu hears her voice and immediately greets her, while Yuna and Ameno come downstairs to see her, and Koga leaves them for the day because he's got something to do. When he finally leaves, Yuna introduces Shizaki to everyone in the inn, and it turns out she's also a massive fan of Nanko's manga. With their plan underway, Yuna asks her to stay with them for a sleepover, as she also wants to talk to her. Shizaki volunteers to cook dinner, and it's the most delicious food they've ever eaten. Because of this, they're starstruck by her brilliance as a woman, so they invite her to take a bath with them. Seeing how good she is at being a woman, Oboro asks for her advice on how to take down Koga. So she tells her not to be too forceful or too vulgar, but Oboro tells her she doesn't want anything except his seed. That night, Shizaki sleeps with Yuna and Koyuzu in Koga's room. Then she starts feeling Yuna's body because she's curious about how can she even sleep but she's a ghost. After some fondling, Koyuzu asks her if she's interested in any guy at all as she's pretty much the most desirable woman in the inn. But Shizaki tells them she's a virgin, so that's pretty much out of the question. Koyuzu asks her how can she charm a man because now she can transform into her adult form. However, Shizaki tells her she can't do that. So Koyuzu just transforms them into different types of women who can charm a man in one go. After a few hours, the gang goes to sleep, but Shizaki is still awake and can't sleep because she feels like there's someone on top of her. It turns out it's actually Yuna because she's a messy sleeper. When she realizes how bad it is, she starts fantasizing about Yuna randomly giving Koga the best pillow on earth. But Koga arrives and interrupts her delusions, changing quickly to his night clothes before falling asleep. When she tries to ask him something, Koga faces her side, and she tries to get out of their bed. But Yuna grabs her and starts sleep-talking and massaging her futures. Koga also grabs her clothes, which causes her to fall out of balance on his face. And then a lot of plot shenanigans happen, which causes Koga to wake up. Realizing that Shizaki is in a pretty bad position, just like any cultured gentleman, he tucks her back to her bed and goes back to sleep. Oboro also comes inside the room to do some major nighttime exercises.
God damn it! You can't make this shit up!
But he freaks out and tells her that he can't do it with someone he doesn't love. So she backs away and tells him she'll conquer him soon enough, all for the glory of his lord. Shizaki learns that deep down, Koga is definitely a good guy and not some sick bastard out to do something nasty. So the next day, she writes Yuna a piece of advice on how to be closer to Koga and how to do it properly. A few weeks later, their summer tour has arrived, so everyone is planning to buy their own swimsuits, including Ameno. Harara, Ameno's ninja buddy, tells her to stop wearing black-themed clothes and swimsuits because she's not emo, and she needs to invite Koga to buy swimsuits with her because he knows better. Besides, Koga is too powerful, so they need to see whether he's going to be a strong ally or a foe. That night, Yuna tells them how excited she is, especially since this is going to be her first time joining a summer tour. Koga, on the other hand, isn't excited because he's had terrible experiences in the past and just wants to have a normal tour with everyone. At his front door, Ameno is thinking about how to properly ask him to come shopping with her without sounding too girly. Koga realizes she's outside, so he asks her what's up, but she stutters and tells him that there's a monster lurking in the swimsuit shop nearby, so he needs his help to defeat it. And so the next day, she and Aurora link up with Koga to go buy their swimsuits. Aurora tells him that they're undercover and they need to pretend like regular customers, otherwise the monster won't come out. So they start trying out different swimsuits, starting with a prisoner one, then a normal black swimsuit. Koga compliments her that it looks good, but Aurora tells her it's garbage and she has garbage taste. She tells her that she needs to be more aggressive and gives her the most revealing swimsuit there is. Aurora tells her she needs to stop thinking like a man and start acting like a woman, but they mess up and fall. So when Koga checks up on them, he gets a free viewing of heaven. Later that day, he realizes the monster thing is just fake news because they just want him to come with them. He tells Amino that she doesn't need to do that because he'll come with her if she just asks normally. Before leaving, Aurora tells him that he needs to make a woman out of Amino, which embarrasses both of them. With all things settled, Amino goes for the normal black swimsuit, all because of Koga. The next day, all students go on a field trip to the beach and Shizaki introduces Yuna to her friend Siri. Meanwhile, Koga is going bonkers as this is his first time having a normal field trip in his life. By noon, the whole class arrives at the beach and Aurora warns Ameno about the monster lurking in the depths of the sea. So they're not there just to enjoy, but as Chuma ninjas, they need to uphold their oath and complete their mission. Ameno asks her if her swimsuit is bad, but Aurora tells her she's overthinking things because she looks good in it already. And then Chisaki arrives, destroying all the confidence left in her body. A few minutes later, Yuna and the rest of the crew also arrive at the scene, and so the beach fan service starts. Yoda tells Koga how lucky he is to be friends with him. But their fun is interrupted when a squiggly monster starts ripping their clothes apart, starting with Chisaki and soon the rest of the girls. So both Koga and Ameno spring into action, destroying many of its limbs in their counterattack. Unfortunately, this monster keeps on regenerating even after being cut completely and the rest of its body is 300 meters deep in the water. With this information at hand, Koga dives straight into the heart of the monster's body, dodging all of its attacks before delivering a devastating serious punch. That afternoon, Chisaki tells the gang that she needs their help, and it's about Koga. Apparently, despite seeing what was happening earlier, their classmates still keep talking trash about him. So she wants to do something for Koga that will make people believe that he's actually a real psychic. And the best way to do that is to do a test of courage. So they gather everyone in their class and group them in pairs. The plan is to scare all of them until Koga rescues them from whatever horrors beyond human comprehension they unleash on this earth. If successful, Koga will be a local superhero and a massive school celebrity, and he'll no longer be that one weirdo who thinks he can punch ghosts and clap girls. But Aurora has a different idea. Later that night, Chisaki gets paired with Koga, and as they walk deeper into the forest, she trips so they rest for a while. They both continue the test, with Koga carrying her on his back. However, Yuna jump scares her because she's also scared of the woods. Once both of them calm down, Aurora summons her sacred beast to test Koga's fighting skills. Ameno lands on his face, but a huge presence of a demonic entity appears from a distance. Apparently, the boys accidentally summon this malevolent creature by kicking its seal. This demonic creature is actually an ancient god imprisoned for a very long time, and he's ready to unleash chaos to the world by eating all humans. Fortunately, Koga saves these two idiots and stands his ground to protect them. The demon bites harder at Koga's arm, but he's unbelievably strong, its teeth start to crack. Sensing Koga's power, he backs off and Koga asks the morons if they'd knocked over his seal. After learning what happened, he humbly bows and apologizes for waking up the demon, despite the fact that he can one-shot him. The demon recognizes this humility in Koga, and he declares that it's better for him to get sealed again than to perish at his hands. So he goes back to his seal, and our boy orders the cretins to help him seal the demon. With this one act, the boy's opinion of Koga changes, and he realizes that all this headache was caused by Chisaki. He tells her there's no reason for her to force people to believe in him or ghosts, because he'll just do his job and punch them straight to heaven. Chisaki is about to thank him when she trips, and he accidentally grabs her melons.
I've done it again! You dirty bastard!
Later that night, all the girls go to the open-air hot bath, while the rest of the boys enjoy theirs. After their bath, Hyoda proposes that they should visit the girls' room, but it's actually against the rules for them to visit each other's rooms. So Koga and Hyoda sneak inside out in the middle of the night to play Uno with them. But then, one of the teachers checks up on them and most of the girls hide with Koga. Because Yuna is so close to him, she almost activates her ability, but he stops her just in time for her to actually activate her abilities. causing everyone to float. With the chaos she created, Koga sneaks out of the room with Yuna, increasing their stealth level by 1. The next day, he and Yuna visit the aquarium to see all the stuff they missed because of the tentacle attack yesterday. The boys from last night greet and ask him if he's gonna dance with Chizaki for tonight's campfire, but he says he hasn't decided yet. That night, he remembers Yuna mentioning the dance, so he asks her to dance with him. Even though he looks like a complete fool dancing solo, he takes it like a real Chad and dances happily with Yuna, creating yet another wonderful memory for her. With their finals coming in 2 weeks, the Amino and Yaya study their hardest for their tests. Obara enters the room and proceeds to give him a massage, which distracts Amino. Yuna, on the other hand, is trying to do some elaborate cooking model recipe, because Chitose also needs to study for her finals. Still fixated on getting Koga's mighty seed, Oboro asks Koyuzu how to make him fall in love with her. So she gives her a very concrete solution, which is to make a love potion and let him consume it. Nanko breaks into the room and starts doing some sloppy head on the ice cream for absolutely no reason. After Yuna finishes making some desserts, Koyuzu takes it from her and Oboro puts some love potion on one of the bowls. Unfortunately, Nanko switches up the order of the potion dessert from the non-potioned one. When the group finishes the dessert, the potion finally takes effect, but it's on Amino. She starts getting real hot and sensitive, causing her to flee from the slightest interaction with Koga. For some reason, he looks like a character from another anime, and she is not happy with that because she thinks she's falling in love with him. So she tries to meditate, but when he touches her forehead, she slam dunks into the ground, before finally stripping her clothes. She tells him that she knows he doesn't think of her as a woman, so she's insecure about it. But he understands her completely and stops her from showing him her legendary loot boxes. He tells her that she's just as cute as any other girl, which causes her to tear up. After a few minutes, the potion's effects finally wear off, and she realizes what she's doing. Oboro explains to Yuna what is happening, so she realizes how bad things are. Later that day, Koga and the gang check up on her, but Amino doesn't want to get out of her room, especially after doing something embarrassing. 2 months later, Yuna wakes up next to Koga, but for the first time in months, she's managed to not send him flying despite the fact that he keeps pushing her big buttons, literally. Later that day, almost everyone leaves for a small vacation, leaving Oboro, Yuna, Nanko, and Koga to hold the fort while they are all gone. All of a sudden, Nanko gets a call from the publishing company, and it's going to be another mappa crunch for them. After helping her with her manga, she rewards them by coming to Okinawa to enjoy the beach in her penthouse. Once they're finished setting their place, she tells them that there is going to be a fireworks show, and there is also a romantic legend by the island's cape near their place. Oboro suddenly appears and shows them her latest swimsuit before switching to a normal one. While helping set their chair, Nanko asks Koga to do a quick time event with her.
Yeah, boy.
Although he's against it, he has no choice but to comply because Nanko activates her puppy eyes. While massaging her, however, she starts randomly making some happy noises, which annoys the hell out of him. Oboro learns from observing them that it's a good idea to let Koga do her sunblock as well because it's a good way to build their relationship. After taking some back shots, she goes full frontal and asks him to rub them sunblock all over her. Yuna also gets a sunblock, which doesn't make sense since she's a ghost.
I don't care.
But Nanko startles him, which causes him to trip for no reason, grabbing Yuna's massive cheesecakes.
You've done it again! Oh, fuck!
In response, Yuna sends him flying like the Team Rocket, but while he's flying, he notices the spirit of a girl bound to the cape. So he asks everyone about it, especially Nanko, since she's the one who told them about the legend. She confirms it and tells him that it's a tragic love story between two lovers who died because of their love for each other, kinda like Romeo and Juliet, but Romeo dies from a car crash and Juliet saves him, but she can't swim. It's basically a case of lingering regret, similar to Yuna, but at least they know what's the cause. Seeing her cry, Koga decides to forcefully ascend both spirits to heaven, so they can finally reunite and not turn into demons. The duo travels to the cape and meets the spirit of a human ghost named Ami. She tells them that she's been waiting for his boyfriend, and that's the reason why she still hasn't ascended. When they ask where her boyfriend is, she points it out next to the road, which is like 50 meters away. The boyfriend in question runs in circles and hides behind a tree when he notices she's looking at him. Apparently the guy's name is Yasu and Ami tells them that if she can fly like Yuna, she'll head to him immediately. But she can't, so the duo asks Yasu what's up with him and why he hasn't visited his girlfriend for years. It turns out he's just a massive coward because he's afraid of Amy in her hands. He tells them that he wants to run away with Ami back then, but he's on a motorcycle and he can't drift, so gravity sends him straight to the ocean floor. Amy sees what happened and she jumps to save him, but she also dies, so the ocean is basically going 2-0 on them. Hearing this, Koga tells him that the only reason he can't go to Amy is because of his mindset. He knows Yasu can do it, but he needs to put his spirit mind in it. In his defense, Yasu can't even look Amy in the eye, especially after what happened to both of them. So the duo head back to Ami to reassess their situation, which is pretty bad, not gonna lie. Yuna empathizes with both spirits and tells Koga that he needs to ascend both of them, because they're both alone, despite seeing each other every day for eternity. Listening to Yuna's advice, Ika slides Yasu and tells him it's over for both of them because he's gonna send her to meet God and he can't do anything about it. So Yasu perseveres and tries his hardest to get to Ami before she leaves him for good, remembering all the good memories they've had together. That night, when the fireworks start working, the duo meets with Ami and apologizes to her, because it seems like they failed to convince him. But against all odds, Yasu arrives to meet her and Ami starts throwing hands, beating the undead crap out of it. However, Yasu finally understands why Ami is so angry and sad at the same time, so he hugs her and apologizes for everything, which pretty much solves their problem as they evaporate and turn into Adobe After Effects. Yuna tells him how happy she is for them and Koga notices how she knows that one day she'll do the same too, so he asks her about her past. Unfortunately, this is one of her biggest problems because she can't remember anything before she became a ghost. Unlike Ami and Yasu, she doesn't have a concrete past and she just wakes up one day as a ghost. Chidos's descendant gave her the name Yuna, and that's all that she can remember. Koga understands her position because he himself was possessed multiple times by many spirits in the past, so sometimes things get a little hazy for him. He thought by asking about Yuna's past, he'd understand her better and solve the reason why she's still in the world. But she tells him it is okay because her life right now is a lot better than what she can remember. She met all types of wonderful people like Oboro and Shisaki, all thanks to Koga. So she believes she doesn't have any lingering regret or anything like that. The next day, Koga wakes up from a nightmare of Yuna getting exorcised, but he realizes he's grabbing her honkers.
You've done it again!
Nope.
So she sends him flying again for breakfast. Yuna saves him and both of them take a breather by the shore, looking at the beautiful morning light. She tells him that she's embarrassed that every waking moment she has to throw him out, either due to her clumsiness or because he's randomly grabbing them hooters. But all is good because she's having fun, and that is the most important thing to her. Remembering her promise to Yuna, Koga starts making her even more wet than before, promising to himself that he'll stay with her until she goes away. And so this is the story of a lonely guy who literally lands on hot water after being a psychic and clapping ghosts left and right. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this video, and comment "Dolo Rise Koga" in the comments to increase your